I found myself jogging between my office and home, frustrated by incomplete work material. After an hour of dealing with it, I changed into running gear and headed out, planning to grab some additional papers I needed from home. About halfway there, I noticed a man ahead, taking a route that led to my subdivision. Unusual, considering the path's limited use. He veered towards my back door, prompting me to quicken my pace. Arriving at the house, I found the patio door unlocked. Knowing my wife, Alice, was working from home, I cautiously entered. No sign of her in the kitchen, just her work documents and laptop. Upstairs, muffled noises hinted at activity. Keeping a billy club near the entrance, a keepsake from my grandfather, I ascended quietly, reminded of cherished memories. Armed with the billy club, I ascended the carpeted stairs without difficulty. The noises emanating from the closed master bedroom door were unmistakably intimate. Slowly turning the knob, I opened the door to a shocking sight. The jogger's discarded clothes littered the floor as he hovered over my completely naked wife, her body sprawled invitingly. Without hesitation, I struck the man with the club, prompting a cry of pain as he recoiled. Alice, wide-eyed and speechless, watched as her boss, Simon Green, fell back from the bed. Defending his actions, Green claimed he was invited, but Alice remained silent, offering no explanation. Simon's voice cut through the tense air, his threat hanging heavy in the room. He towered over me, a formidable figure with his martial arts training and imposing stature. Despite his confident demeanor, I maintained my composure, drawing on my own skills honed from hours of playing tennis, particularly my powerful backhand. A smirk crossed my lips, seemingly provoking Simon further. With a primal roar, he lunged towards me, but I was prepared. Executing a swift backhand strike aimed for his cheek, my billy club connected with his forehead as he descended, sending him crashing to the ground like a felled tree. His motionless form lay sprawled on the floor, while Alice appeared dazed and unresponsive. Surveying the scene, I noticed Simon's cell phone on the dresser, positioned to capture the unfolding events. Suspecting foul play, I dialed 911, alerting them to the situation and requesting immediate assistance. Moments later, as the police and medics arrived, I cooperated fully, relinquishing my weapon and guiding them to the scene. The officers, led by Sergeant Leslie Haddon, swiftly assessed the situation, attending to Simon's injuries and ensuring Alice's safety. As they tended to the aftermath, I remained downstairs, out of their way but ready to assist if needed, the weight of the event settling heavily upon me. I entered the kitchen, scanning the room before retrieving Green's cell phone from where he left it. Connecting it to my computer, I swiftly downloaded the video and the phone's contents, forwarding the incriminating evidence to my office email. After completing the task, I left the phone on Alice's desk and observed from the doorway as the ambulance team attended to Green's injuries and transported him away. A policewoman guided Alice into the front room, her demeanor distant as she shuffled along in the borrowed robe and sneakers. Sergeant Haddon, accompanied by Detective Dempster, a familiar face from my previous legal work, entered the kitchen to discuss the unfolding events. Detective Dempster inquired, "Do you know the man you struck?" "Yes, Simon Green, with an E," I confirmed. "Any idea if he has family nearby?" "Not that I'm aware of. He was married with kids when last I heard." "Did you suspect any involvement between him and your wife?" "None, until today." "Allow me to recount the sequence of events," I replied, providing a detailed narrative. "Did you recognize Green outside?" "No, his identity became clear when he rolled off the bed." "You struck him twice. Why?" "He threatened me and charged aggressively. The second blow was unintentional." "Roared?" "Yes, an attempt to intimidate, I believe." "Understood. Your wife will be tested for substances. The cell phone may hold valuable evidence," Dempster noted, as a crime scene technician retrieved it. Concerned about Alice, I joined Dempster and Sergeant Haddon in the living room, where she sat with a medic and an officer. As they prepared to transport her to county hospital, Alice briefly acknowledged me with a tearful apology before slipping back into her detached state. With a heavy heart, I followed the ambulance, leaving the police to secure the house. I phoned Alice's parents, who lived in a neighboring state, and briefed them on the situation, promising to update them from the hospital. Alice and I had married right after college, when she was 21 and I was finishing law school. She landed a job at Simon Green's insurance firm, where she steadily climbed the ranks over 6 years. Despite attending company events with her, I never sensed anything untoward between Alice and Green. Our marriage had felt strong until today's revelation. Assuming the liaison I witnessed was consensual, it spelled the end for us. Alice was vibrant, beautiful, and kind, and our intimacy had always been fulfilling, even amidst my demanding legal career. The scene I stumbled upon baffled me. Green's physical stature didn't seem imposing enough to explain Alice's betrayal, but I couldn't dismiss it with just a cursory glance. At the hospital, Green's wife was in the waiting room, oblivious to my presence. Focusing on Alice, I was allowed into her bay where she slept, seemingly unaffected by my anguish. A doctor, Moore, informed me of Alice's shock-induced state and the expectation of her eventual return to normalcy. Concerned about Green's condition, I inquired with Dr. Moore, learning he was in a medically induced coma due to a severe head injury. The revelation left me grappling with the uncertainty of his fate. Contacting Alice's parents, I relayed the updates, but discouraged their visit, opting for a private conversation with Alice first. Her mother, Joni Carson, expressed concern and urged me to give Alice a chance to explain. Resolving to confront Mrs. Green, I found her in the ICU waiting room and introduced myself, hinting at the closeness between Alice and her husband. She was a slender, brown-haired woman, probably in her late 30s. "Close?" she asked. "Yes. They were naked in my bedroom when I came home this morning." "That kind of close," I replied. "Ah, you're the guy who hit him." "Yes." "Sorry." "No, you're not sorry." "Are you?" "Maybe not." "I'm sorry. Sorry not to be sorry." "Well, okay. Simon has been acting strange lately. It made me wonder. He didn't make it to the kids' sports events like he used to. He claimed he was busy at work. I guess he was busy with your wife. I don't know that for sure, except for today. But they sure got down to it fast. Like they had a routine, maybe. What have the doctors told you about how he's doing?" "They haven't said much. He may have an operation soon, though." "Well, good luck to you. Have your kids?" "They're with my folks. They know he's at the hospital. Not much else." Needing some air and perspective, I stepped outside for about an hour before returning. Alice was still in the same emergency room space, now stirring but still asleep. I sat down beside her and dozed off. Her mewling woke me, and I hurried for help. Dr. Moore responded quickly. "She seems to be waking up," I told her, explaining Alice's initial reaction to seeing me. "Wait here," Dr. Moore instructed before entering the space to check on Alice. When the curtain opened, I stepped inside. "Alice, I'll take you home. Soon, I hope. After that." "Okay, thanks. I'm sorry." "We'll talk," I assured her before turning to Dr. Moore to arrange their departure. Dr. Moore brought her some dull aqua scrubs. I stepped out of the cubicle while she changed, which she seemed to interpret as rejection. It was. I had no desire to see her naked, maybe never again. When I pulled the car up to the exit, they had her in a wheelchair. She stood and got into the car without a word. We drove in silence for the 10-minute journey, her tears flowing silently but not sobbing. Inside what had been our happy home, no police were present, and there wasn't much of a mess downstairs. Alice sat on the rocker in the living room as I excused myself to check upstairs. The bedroom showed signs of a struggle, with a slice out of the carpet where Green had fallen, likely to get blood out. The bed was stripped down to the mattress, and drawers were left ajar. I made a mental note to sort through it all later. The other rooms seemed relatively undisturbed, except for the bathroom where there was evidence of fingerprinting, powder scattered across surfaces. Dreading the upcoming discussion with Alice, I called her parents to inform them she was home. They were relieved but wanted to rush over. Unsure of what to say, I deferred a decision. Steeling myself, I descended the stairs. "Do you want something? Coffee? Water?" I offered as I took a seat across from her on the sofa, maintaining a distance of about 6 feet between us. No. Nothing, Alice replied, meeting my gaze. What happened, Alice? I thought we were doing well. What? I trailed off, unable to comprehend what had transpired. It's hard to explain, Timmy. I worked for Simon for all these years. I always liked him. Not, sexually. But lately, in the last month or so, he started flirting. He'd make a little comment about how nice I looked. He would touch me sometimes, on the arm or shoulder. I was surprised. Then he asked me out to lunch, just as he said. But, didn't you consider all that, the big change in attitude, consider it strange? Maybe a little, she admitted, her gaze dropping. I was flattered. And, he's quite attractive, I found that I was interested. It took me a while to admit that. So, you knew he was trying to seduce you, and you decided what? To see what happened, she confessed, burying her face in her hands before looking up again. And I felt a sinking feeling, realizing that this wasn't a case of being tricked or drugged. She wanted it. And we went to lunch. I asked him why he was doing this now, after all this time. He said that he always wanted me, from the start, but squelched it. That was his phrase. Squelched it. Alice, why? What's wrong with me that you were open to him? Nothing's wrong with you, Timmy. He said he wanted me so much. He said he wanted me much more than you did. I was old hat for you. New for him, exciting. Just the thought got me aroused. Why didn't you talk to me about it? What would I say, that I was considering cheating? For more excitement? I never considered that. How many times did he? He never. Today was supposed to be the one and only. But you showed up. I was so deeply sorry when I saw you. I saw your face. After you smacked his ass. You looked at me with such disdain. Not even hate or anger. Just like you thought I was despicable. A brief look, and then you clubbed him. As she spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that the cops should have talked to her first. Screw them. Had to do it. He came for me. I know. But it was so quick and final. Alice, I don't believe you about this being the first time. I saw him come through the back. The door was unlocked. And it didn't take me long to come inside and upstairs. But you were both naked, and he was about 2 inches from fucking you. You wanted it, too. So, I believe you'd done it before. No, Tim, Simon and I had a make-out session in his car 2 days ago. We felt each other up. But I wouldn't let him go further. I told him he could come to our house after you left for work. Still, seemed so unlikely. Think if you saw what I saw. What would you believe? Oh, you have to believe me. Or maybe not. I just don't know how to get you to accept what I say. And, now, I can never accept what you say. Can I? Tim, I love you. I don't love Simon. He made me want him. How? He's so forceful. He says what he wants. He wanted me. And you wanted him, obviously. Alice, right now I want to give this some serious thought. If I decided anything now, we'd be headed to a split. I'll never be able to forget what I saw. Okay. But please remember, I love you. I'm so sorry that you're hurt. She sobbed this out. I turned and left, heading upstairs to our home office. I started going over the material from Green's phone. Calls to Alice's phone, texts about lunch, all frequent occurrences over the past few months. It seemed they were often together, even on days she worked from home. Watching the video, I saw Alice eagerly anticipating Green's advances. It confirmed my suspicions that this wasn't their first encounter. Though she claimed innocence, her actions spoke otherwise. Feeling less stunned and more enraged, I returned downstairs and told Alice I had to go back to work. Donning my running gear, I jogged away, caring little for her feelings at that moment. I wrapped up my tasks from when I went for the run. Researching divorce laws in our state, I found that adultery still qualified as grounds for divorce, albeit not commonly utilized. No-fault divorces were also an option, attainable after 6 months of separation with a signed agreement. However, if one party refused to sign, the process could extend to around 18 months. Unsure about divorcing Alice but certain about needing a separation, I drafted an agreement. Essentially, it outlined our living separately, dividing finances, and refraining from sexual contact. Additionally, a crucial clause stipulated that neither of us could engage in sexual activities with others. Violating this provision would grant the other party freedom to pursue a divorce immediately. With 3 copies printed, I walked back home. Alice was preparing dinner, a simple meal of spaghetti and meat sauce, accompanied by a salad. She appeared in sweats, devoid of makeup and wearing no shoes. She glanced at me hesitantly. "Smells good." "Thanks. Can I help?" I offered. "I can manage. But if you want carrots in the salad, they're in the fridge," she replied. I chopped up some carrots and added them to the bowl. We ate quietly, sharing a bottle of red wine. Afterwards, we cleaned up and moved to the living room to talk. I could sense Alice's apprehension as we sat down. She spoke softly. "Tim, I want to apologize again for what happened with Simon. I need to figure out where things went wrong. I think I should see someone." "That's okay. But for now, I think we need to separate. I'll find an apartment nearby, and you can stay here." "I'm not comfortable being here, right now," I stated. "Are you sure? I feel so guilty." "Is that why you want a divorce?" she asked. "It's a step towards that, but I haven't decided. I just need space to think. I've written up a separation agreement." I handed it to her. Reading through it tearfully, she looked up at me. "Can we wait a few days before finalizing this, so I can arrange for my mom to come?" "Sure. Take your time. Let me know when you're ready," I replied. "Tim, I meant what I said about counseling. Maybe you could join me if the therapist suggests," she suggested. "Maybe. I do love you, Alice. But I'm confused and very, very angry. It feels like I'll never see you the same way again," I confessed. "Me either," she admitted, breaking down into tears. I didn't offer comfort. "The woman I loved would never have done this. You're not her. Maybe you're mostly her. Maybe not. I feel like our whole life together has been a sham. The only question, how much of a sham?" I expressed before heading upstairs to gather my belongings. The next day, despite little sleep, I managed to focus at work. Immersing myself in tasks, I momentarily forgot about Alice. Perhaps that's how I'd coped during the separation. During lunch break, I browsed apartment rentals and arranged to view one just 2 blocks from work the next morning. The day seemed to rush by, a welcome distraction. Walking home around 5:30, passing the running trail, I entered through the sliding rear door. Alice was cooking fish stew, filling the house with its aroma. She was a talented cook, unlike myself, but I figured I'd manage. As we ate, Alice mentioned her mother arriving on Saturday and asked if I'd found a place yet. "Maybe. I have a viewing scheduled for tomorrow. We can finalize things tomorrow night, and I'll be out by Saturday, rental or not," I replied. "It doesn't have to be this way, Tim. I promise you it'll never happen again." "I promise," Alice pleaded. "No. Promises can easily be broken, obviously," I retorted. She looked at me intensely, no tears in her eyes. "You're letting your hurt feelings cloud your judgment," she remarked. "What would be the sensible thing for me to do? Ignore your deceit?" "Not happening," I asserted. "You could try. Not ignore. Forgive." "I apologized," she suggested. "I really have no idea if I can forgive. I do know that I can never forget it, what happened, what I saw. The video. I can email you a copy," I stated bluntly. "Geez, Tim." Alice began to sob and fled upstairs. I cleaned up the dishes. Deciding to take the apartment I viewed, I arranged for some furnishings to be delivered. Sitting alone after lunch, I contemplated my future. It seemed highly improbable that I would ever reconcile with Alice. I decided to confide in Michelle Davis, a friend from the same firm where Alice worked. We had remained friends since college, although our romantic relationship ended when I met Alice. She had heard about the incident with Green. We met for lunch at Sonny's. After catching up, I recounted the whole ordeal to her. Michelle had always been someone I trusted. When I finished, she said, I had heard rumors about Simon Green, talk of him going off the rails and possibly divorcing. I also heard whispers about Alice being involved with him. I didn't want to believe it. What exactly did you hear? What does seeing him entail? I inquired. Like lunches, office meetings. All the other stuff was speculation. But Green, I never saw him so much. Green was supposed to have changed. Like he was always looking to get laid. The office girls were beside themselves. Huh. So, Alice wasn't the only one? Maybe not. But it sure seems like she was a target, a major target. They saw each other every day. No offense, but why didn't you call me? I thought about it. But I considered that she wouldn't do anything. And calling you might stir up a lot of bad stuff. I wish I had, now. Me, too. What are you going to do? I got an apartment, wrote a separation agreement. 6 months, as you know. But I'm not sure. I hope you, at least listen to her. What could she say? She already apologized and said she'd never do it again. So what? It's a tough one, I guess. Yeah. How are you and Big Bill doing, and Little Will? Little Will is great. He's 3. A dynamo. He's starting preschool. Okay, and? Oh, Tim, you don't need to hear my problems. Yours are a lot more serious. I could use a break from them. And I'll help if I can, if something's amiss. Nothing major. He has to travel a lot. Sometimes when he gets home, he's distant. Not like before. Now, hearing about Alice makes me wonder. But I just now decided to be proactive. Shelley, what's that mean? Some checking up, maybe. He's a good guy. We're a family. But I need some reassurance. Just ask him. Talk. You're both talkers. Sort it out. Tell him how you feel. I worry about that. He might see it as me not trusting him. Well, you don't. Do you? Just be gentle, diplomatic. Maybe. Thanks. I hope you and Alice get through this. I was never a big fan of hers in school. You know why. But I thought she was good for you, in the end. We finished lunch, hugged, and left. Shelley was a good woman, and I hoped she wasn't going to be hurt. Alice went back to work, I was told. I was relieved that she didn't get fired. More and more I was coming to conclude that Alice and I were done. We were only committed to each other, with no kids. She broke her part of the commitment. So, it was over. And I didn't believe that I wanted to make a new start, with a new commitment. It was a depressing conclusion, but the one I felt was right. I hadn't had any contact with Alice since I moved on that Saturday. It had been a week. She left messages, 3, on my phone, asking me to come by and talk. I never replied. She texted me that she was on probation at work, but still employed. I went by the house the next Saturday afternoon. I just walked up the running trail and knocked on the patio door. Alice's mother, Tess, was in the kitchen and opened the door when she saw me. Hi, Tess. Is Alice around? She's out. She should be back soon. Tim, I want to say that she's so messed up about this. Ken, have you decided anything? I only wanted a discussion with Alice, Tess. Where did she go? Tess looked a little uncomfortable. She went to her friend's house. Tess, you're hiding something. You're not good at it. What friend? Did she sleep here or somewhere else? Tim, she was in a bad state. A workmate came by, and they went for a meal. Tess, was it dinner last night? You can't hide it from me. I noticed that she was standing in such a way as to block the door from the kitchen. I walked by her to the front door. A car, a new Mustang, pulled up. A blond guy was driving. He exited his door and went around to open the passenger door. Alice got out. She was dressed for a date. Last night's date. I jogged up to them. Hi, Alice, I came by to see you. She turned in shock. The guy looked startled and uneasy. Timmy, this is James from work. He fucked you last night. I was calm, but something in my voice must have frightened them both. James from work started backing away. He said, Man, I don't want any trouble here. I was only trying to help out. Bullshit. You got what you were after. If you stay here any longer, you're gonna get way more than what you bargained for. Scat. He was my size and younger. I could see him straighten up, insulted. He said, If you say so, Alice. Emphasis on the you. I smiled at him. She gave you an honorable way out, asshole. Take it. He humped as he went, a pace, around his car and drove off. He tried for a wheelie, but the new Mustangs couldn't do that. What a jerk. I looked at Alice, that's it, you know. You didn't last a week. The agreement said no sex. I'm going to invoke that clause. I'll have you served as soon as the papers are ready. Sorry, Tim. I'm weak and I needed reassurance. And I knew that you and I were quits. I love you, though, even if it seems like I don't. I think you just needed a new dick to get your thrills that you missed last week. What a slut you turned into. No more need for us to have any communication. Get a lawyer. I walked away, around the back to the trail, and went home. She had made it a very easy decision. I was really surprised, though. I'd been with her for a long time, and there had been none of this slutty shit. She wasn't a 10, but she was attractive, and surely men hit on her often. I wondered why, all of a sudden, she started giving in to them. I decided, before I made it back to my place, that it would forever be a mystery to me. Or maybe I'd ask her mom if I could get a private moment. I did get a private moment with Tess. About a week after the last visit, I slid over to the house when Alice was likely at work. I knocked on the patio door and Tess let me in. Why are you here, Tim? I wanted to understand what happened, if possible, and it seemed to me that you might have some ideas. I mean, we were doing well, and then she just slid up. Do you have any idea why? Maybe. She had, I guess has, issues with self-esteem. She wasn't very attractive to men boys all through most of high school. She had no chest, and she was skinny. Her two friends filled out much quicker. They were popular and became cheerleaders. Alice was nowhere near them when it came to popularity. Gradually they moved away from her. But when she was 17, she filled out. She gained some weight in all the right places. Her face didn't have breakouts anymore. Boys began to take notice. She went to the prom with a football guy and lost her virginity. 18, she was. Then, over that summer, she went wild. She was working, but every night she was out with her friends and guys. I worried that she'd get knocked up. But she was on the pill. I worried about disease. But, as far as I know, that didn't happen. I said, but when I met her at college junior year, she didn't seem sexually needy. She always seemed normal to me. She was experienced, though. More than I was. She told me what she liked and wanted. I liked that. But she never strayed from when we started dating. Until now. She paused and said, Have you guys been talking about kids? Yes. We plan to start soon. That's all gone now. Well, maybe she worried that if she got pregnant, men wouldn't like her anymore. I think she took up with her boss because he was after her and she needed some reassurance. That's the best I can do. But what about Boy Wonder with the Mustang? Same deal. Younger guy with a hot car. Proof she still had it. Before she knew well that she was unlikely to stay married or have my kids. Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe she was just horny. How long are you staying? Not too much longer. Have a good life, Tess. I left. The divorce went through without any problems. Alice moved out of our rental and got an apartment across town, closer to her work. I didn't have any contact with her after the final court date. When we went to finalize the divorce, Alice came up to me after, in the hall. Take me to lunch, Tim. Actually, I'll buy. I need to get some stuff said. Okay. We went to Red Lobster. I just had an appetizer, and she had soup. She looked at me after we ordered. Tim, I really messed up with you. I've been seeing a counselor. She says I was scared of kids. But I don't know. I think maybe I'm just a natural flirt. I very much wanted Simon to be with me. Sorry. I may never understand, Alice. He's no big catch. What happened to him? He didn't die, and I haven't heard more. He's back at work part-time. He has a cane and has very little use of his right arm. And his wife divorced him. Good for her. I thought it was harsh. You really messed him up, Tim. Well, the two of you really messed up my life. But, I guess, not as much as you messed up your own lives. How are you doing, anyway? I miss you and our life. I can have all the sex I want, now, with most men I meet. And I do like that. I get really hot and horny. When that happens, I have to do something about it. I don't know why that started up again with me. Simon reminded me of the guy who took me to prom and slept with me after. Maybe I wanted the glory days back. And now you have them. You can have sex to your heart's content. Don't be cruel. But she was laughing. I really didn't mean it to be funny. But I saw the humor and laughed with her. She said, a new partner always gets me excited, though. She paused. Anyway, I do miss you and our married life. I haven't found any guy who was better in bed than you. Maybe one who was as good. He's bigger. But you and I got to know each other so well. You could always satisfy me. I was a fool. I admit that our conversation about her promiscuous behavior aroused me. I didn't try to hide it from her, and she noticed. I see you still find me attractive, Tim. I'm available for you, anytime. She started singing that song, You Just Call Out My Name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. She smiled at me. Oh, Alice, Jesus. I was conflicted. At that moment, Alice was the most seductive woman I'd ever encountered. I desired her more than any other woman. Our waitress approached with the food. Alice tossed $30 on the table as she got up. She turned to the waitress. Something's come up. We have to leave right now. I stood up. Alice and the waitress glanced down at my crotch simultaneously. Alice was flushed, and the waitress, whose name tag said Gwen, was momentarily flustered. Then she broke into a big smile. I can see that you two have to leave now. She looked right at me. Come back later, big boy, I get off at 6. She was cute. Alice grabbed my hand and gave her a dirty look. She tugged me outside. We had walked from court. Her apartment was 2.5 blocks away. We entered the building and took the elevator. Once the elevator door closed, Alice attacked me. She pressed me against the wall and rubbed herself all over me. This is going to feel amazing, Tim. I'm going to ravish you. Okay. I was breathing heavily. The elevator door opened. 2 women were waiting outside. Alice and I stepped off the elevator. The women were astonished. We hurried past them. One of them said, Hi, Alice. Alice didn't respond. Her apartment door opened. She pulled me inside, and I almost stumbled over an end table. Alice dropped her dress on the living room floor. Her bra came off as I removed my shirt. Her panties came down as my pants dropped to the floor. She stepped back, appraising me, and I did the same to her. She licked her lips. Then I guided her into the bedroom and onto her bed. "Just make love to me now." She spread her legs. But then she pushed me onto my back. She moaned. "I said I was going to ravish you, and that's what I'm going to do." She seemed more confident now than before. Alice mounted me, looking me directly in the eye as she inserted my penis inside her and slowly lowered herself down. Then she began moving, just enough for friction. She gazed at me intently, and I thought I detected a hint of triumph. But it was fleeting, and then she leaned in and kissed me passionately. She started rocking and grinding on top of me. Alice climaxed quickly, maybe after 10 thrusts. It was an intense orgasm that I could feel throughout my entire body, squeezing. I climaxed strongly too. It seemed to last forever. She was enhancing my orgasm with hers. She made loud noises, oh, ugh. I'm not sure if I made any sound at all. After we finished, she remained on top, and I was still inside her. We lay like that for a while, just breathing. I probably should have reflected on how strange it was to end our divorce day like this, but that realization would come later. Alice sat up and looked down at me. "That was the best sex we've ever had. The best I've ever had, period. I should have divorced you long ago." She started laughing, causing her movements to stimulate me again, making me very hard once more. I flipped her over onto the bed and we continued for a long time. I felt her orgasm multiple times, just like the pulsating sensation I remembered from our best moments together in marriage. Then I climaxed again, just as intensely and pleasurable as the first time. This time, I rolled off her. I thought that if I stayed on top of her, we'd soon be at it again, and that might have some severe consequences, at least for me. The divorce was finalized on a Friday morning. Alice and I spent the entire afternoon and evening in bed. We had a light meal, and I suggested going back to Red Lobster, but she declined firmly. Instead, she straddled my face and playfully commanded me to pleasure her. She laughed until I got serious about pleasing her, which silenced her laughter. Then we had soup from her fridge, still naked. After finishing a brownie she had, she looked at me. "Should we talk now, or have sex?" I didn't hesitate. As I got up and took her hand, I said, "Sex." So, we did. Several more times that night, each encounter more fantastic than the last. Some were slow and tender, while others were passionate and intense. She was right, I knew exactly how to please her, and she knew exactly how to pleasure me. Our lovemaking sometimes felt like a fierce competition, each of us trying to outdo the other. No one won, but it was exhilarating to play. In the morning, we made love again, and then she made breakfast. As we ate, I felt we needed to discuss what had happened. "Alice, I hope we can continue this. Divorce sex was even better than honeymoon sex. Timmy, I realize now that getting married was a mistake for me. I thought I could keep my promise to only be with you, and I tried. But now I know I can't. However, that doesn't mean I want you out of my life. I meant it when I sang the James Taylor song. But someday, Alice, I'll want to settle down and have a family. Maybe that's what drove you to other guys. I love having sex with you. You're the best. You'll probably always be the best I've ever had. Maybe we can keep this up until one or both of us has a reason to stop. Okay. Let's make love now." We spent the entire weekend in bed, with short breaks for food, showers, bathroom breaks, and toothbrushing. On Saturday afternoon, there was a knock at her door. Alice put on a robe and answered. It was the woman we encountered as we left the elevator. She was older, but looked good. Alice greeted her, "Hi, Maisie." Maisie peered into the apartment. I was wearing gym shorts, and I didn't bother hiding. Alice and I had been intimate, and I was still aroused, though covered. "Well, Alice, I hadn't seen you for a while, and I just wanted to check to see if you were okay." "More than okay, Maisie. Way more." Alice smiled at me, and Maisie noticed. Maisie said, I see. You two just keep having a good time. You're a lucky girl, Alice. I won't worry anymore. Thanks, I'm sure we will, Alice said, closing the door softly and giggling. You gave her quite a look at the goods. She did take a peek, didn't she? Maybe we should have invited her in for coffee. With cream? That would be too much cholesterol, she quipped, pulling down my shorts. We both went to work that Monday, nothing permanently resolved between us. Throughout the day, I couldn't shake off what had happened. I knew I'd never entertain the idea of a permanent relationship with Alice again, at least not as partners. But as long as we were enjoying passionate sex, I was game. However, if I met someone I could see myself marrying and having kids with, I'd proceed with extreme caution. Alice had taught me a hard lesson. Nonetheless, I still wanted a family and children, so I kept an eye out. Alice, on the other hand, wasn't interested in settling down. She had me and 3 other men she saw regularly. We weren't committed, and surprisingly, I didn't mind. In fact, the idea that she was so sexually liberated turned me on. I just made sure to get tested regularly for STDs, and thankfully, all results were negative. One day, as I was leaving Alice's place after a quickie, I bumped into Maisie. She eyed me up and down suggestively. Hi, maybe you remember me. I sure remember you. You make a good tent, she teased. I do remember you, Maisie. Alice mentioned you're divorced. Yep, been single for 18 months now. It's not easy being a single woman my age. You look fantastic, regardless of age, and you know it. Care to invite me in? Absolutely. You're Tim, right? Yes. We headed up to the 4th floor, where Maisie's apartment was across from Alice's. Just as we reached Maisie's door, Alice emerged from hers. She chuckled, You're quite the ladies' man, Tim. I never would have guessed when we were married. Have a great time, Maisie. Tim's quite the stud. With that, she sauntered off. Maisie was intrigued about my relationship with Alice, but we didn't delve into it right away. Instead, she showed me her tastefully decorated bedroom, at least before we started. Maisie was 40, with a son in college and a daughter working downtown. She was fantastic in bed, and I thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I left the next morning, promising to stay in touch, which I did. It was a pleasure. I began to wonder about the other women on the 4th floor, but I never found out. One day, while passing by the courthouse, a woman walking toward me stopped and asked, Don't I know you? It was Gwen, the waitress. You're Gwen. You served us at Red Lobster, I replied. Oh, she blushed. I remember now. Surprised I forgot. But I wasn't exactly focused on your face. My apologies. I'm Tim. Are you still at Red Lobster? Part-time. I also do some modeling. She was a good-looking blonde, slim with captivating blue eyes. I remember you invited me to meet you at 6. But Alice and I were occupied for the whole weekend. Are you two together permanently? No, not at all. That day we met you, we had just finalized our divorce in court. Somehow, that seemed to charge us up, as you saw. Interesting, does it still work? We do see each other. There's definitely compatibility in some areas, but not in others, she said, smiling at me. Maybe you should let me take you out then. I'm off today, I suggested. I like your style. Can we have dinner at your place tonight? I'll cook, she proposed. I'm really looking forward to it, Tim, she replied. That evening, she arrived around 6:30, looking stunning in a short shift dress and sandals. I whipped up a chicken stir-fry and fried rice as we chatted. She was 25, juggling part-time modeling gigs for clothing magazines with her waitressing job. She'd never been married but ended a long-term relationship about 10 months prior. At 34, I was doing well at the law firm, owning a condo and a nice car. Aside from Alice and Maisie, I also had a casual arrangement with a courthouse clerk. But with Gwen, I felt ready to commit. Our first night, we agreed that I'd walk her home. A kiss at her door left me thrilled. We weren't rushing into bed. As our relationship blossomed, I found myself falling for her. She was both beautiful and intelligent, and it seemed she felt the same about me. On our third date, we finally made it to bed, and it was lovely. I decided to end things with the other women. One night, after an intense session, I opened up to Gwen about my past marriage and insecurities. "Gwen, I've stopped seeing other women. I think I'm in love with you," I confessed. "I'm glad to hear that. Since meeting you, you're the only one I've been with or even kissed. I love you, Tim. But I worry about your trust issues. Will you always doubt me? Because if I promise to be faithful, I will," she expressed her concerns. "I can't say I won't worry, but if you promise, I'll try my best to trust you," I reassured her. "Okay, deal. I'll be faithful, and so will you." "It rhymes," she quipped. 2 weeks later, I proposed, and 3 months later, we were married. We had a modest ceremony in town, inviting Alice and Maisie, but not Mary. She was just a casual fling, no emotional connection. After introducing Gwen to Alice, I could sense Alice's melancholy. We weren't in love, but I knew she'd miss our physical connection, and I would too. Gwen and I enjoyed a honeymoon in the Bahamas before settling into my condo. Things went smoothly. We decided to start a family and were blessed with 2 children, Thomas and Eileen, within 3 years. I made partner at the firm, and we purchased a house in a nearby suburb. I stayed connected with Alice, but strictly as friends. She married a colleague named Larry Gibson a year after Gwen and I got married. Larry was successful, and together they had 2 sons, Lawrence and Raymond. They settled in a nearby area, so our paths crossed often. Our kids even attended the same play school, fostering a friendship between Gwen and Alice. However, Larry and I didn't bond as easily. He seemed wary of me around Alice, and in truth, he had reason to be cautious. Despite being married, there was still an undeniable attraction between Alice and me. Gwen was aware of it, but trusted me to remain faithful. Over time, she even trusted Alice not to pursue me. Yet, Larry, sensing the lingering chemistry, struggled to fully trust the situation. Nevertheless, Larry and I shared a love for baseball and often attended games together. We played on the same men's team in an old-timers league and held season tickets for the MLB games of the Gems. During one of our outings, as we waited in the parking garage after a game, I decided to address the elephant in the room. "Larry, I want to assure you that I'll never engage in anything with Alice again. We're both married now, and it's not going to happen. I understand your concerns," I stated frankly. "Tim, that's a direct approach," Larry replied, taken aback. "I believe we could be good friends if you could trust me and trust Alice," I continued. "It's hard when I see the history between you two." "It makes me wonder," Larry confessed. "I won't deny there's history, but I give you my word. I'm committed to Gwen, just as I expect Alice is to you," I assured him. "I can't help but feel uneasy, especially knowing the connection you two shared," Larry admitted. "Look, Larry, the physical aspect was one thing, but love changes everything. I have a great relationship with Gwen, and that's what matters," I explained. "Okay, I see your perspective now. Thanks for being honest," Larry responded, visibly relieved. That conversation brought clarity and eased tensions among the 4 of us. Of course, I didn't entirely disclose the truth to Larry. The intimacy I shared with Alice after the divorce remained unparalleled in my mind. It's a memory I still carry, though not obsessively. And I know Alice feels the same. And that's where story ends. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.